Welcome to Future Fuel. I am Jan Palasinski, investment partner at Future Energy Ventures. Today, we will explore how Nuventura, one of our portfolio companies, is about to save the world. So for this, I welcome Fabian Lemke, co-founder and CEO of Nuventura.
Hi, Jan. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So what is the problem you're solving with Nuventura, Fabian?
Well, we are tackling a very specific problem around gas called sulfur hexafluoride, or in short, SF6 in the energy industry. And SF6 is, in fact, the strongest greenhouse gas that humanity knows. It's widely used in something called gas-insulated switchgear. And this is used in the electricity grids. And just to give you a flavor of what that means, strongest greenhouse gas, SF6 is 25,000 times stronger than carbon dioxide with regard to its global warming effect. And that is why even small emissions of it in the atmosphere have a great impact. And the actual emissions that we see today are equivalent to roughly 100 million cars.
So why isn't this in the news every day as the first news?
Well, I mean, we do have more cars than 100 million on the planet. So maybe from that perspective, there are other elements that are also very relevant. But it's also a very specific technical product, and until recently, also there hadn't been really a good replacement for it. So it was one of those gases, like also the HFCs in the HVAC systems, for example, where there has just been some technological development, and there wasn't really a way to avoid it. At least that is what the sort of the common idea or the common understanding was.
Could you explain me, like I'm five, how the Nuventura system works compared to the existing systems?
Yeah, maybe to just give a flavor of what a switchgear actually is. First of all, if you switch on your lights, you use a switch, and the switchgear is basically the same thing for the electricity grid. It really turns on and off electricity, and it also works to a certain extent a little bit like a fuse that you have at home. If there's an overcurrent or over voltage at your home, your fuse will go off, and the same thing is what the switchgear does, just that it disconnects a certain part of the grid. So that's what it does. And switching in the so-called medium and high voltage grids is a little more complicated than switching on light at home. And therefore you need those switchgears. And one of the technologies is gas insulated switchgears. They have a lot of benefits. They're called gas insulated because they're using a gas, sulfur hexafluoride, to insulate the components inside the switchgear. And therefore you can make it very compact and also very reliable because you have a completely hermetically sealed tank in which all the switching happens. And therefore all external influences are avoided.
So basically, Fabian, this means that this SF6 from a citizen point of view is actually very good, technically speaking, no?
Yeah.
So you are able to replace this gas with fantastic properties with dry air. How do you manage?
So the way we do this is basically by managing the electric fields inside the switchgear. You need this insulation gas. It's an electrical insulation gas in order to bring the components close together, but still avoid that there's electric arcs in between the components because they are under voltage. That's basically what the gas does, SF6. And you're right, we are using dry air. So this is just breathable, simple technical air without moisture instead of SF6, which actually does have very not so good properties compared to SF6 with regard to the insulation. But if you manage the electric fields of the components that we have inside the switchgear, if you manage that better, then you need less insulation. And this is how we can actually use air instead of SF6. And also we are changing the approach a little bit. We are increasing the pressure inside the system so that the air is more dense. And this increases also the insulation properties. So the combination of these two aspects enables us basically to avoid SF6,
Understood.
but keep all the benefits.
This sounds all obviously super interesting, but from a venture capital perspective, it sounds very hardware. Do you also have some software solutions together with the air innovation in your hardware?
Yeah, so one element that we could have sort of bring to the switchgear world as well is that we can integrate sensors inside the system more easily because we do not have to control this environment in such a strict way as you have to do it with SF6. So we can bring in sensors and therefore make the next step towards intelligent switchgear, which is continuously monitored, and therefore the utilities can change how they, for example, maintain or monitor their switchgears. Today, they really have to drive to the switchgears wherever they are all over the country and basically check them visually, and they cannot really see what's going on inside. So with our system, it is easier to integrate those sensors, and this is the component that we're bringing in. So that's the second part of the innovation, so to say. But our sort of main purpose as founders has been to avoid this gas as this strong greenhouse gas.
Yeah, understood. But for your customers, obviously, we can call this a climate tech solution, but also smart grid solution at the same time, no?
Yeah, to a certain extent, it helps the utilities to manage their assets better. Yes.
And for these, obviously, you are a small startup, and you are competing with the giants like ABB, Schneider, Siemens. How does it feel, this David versus Goliath?
Yeah, it's I guess many startups go through a phase where they kind of face competition, and if it's corporate, you also tend to be a bit too arrogant in the beginning and think you're much faster than the corporates. But on the other hand, indeed, I mean, there is a certain agility that we have that we think doesn't exist with the corporates in such a way. So how does it feel? I think when we started, we weren't really focused so much on them. You could call this naive, but we were totally focused on the idea and getting this done. And throughout the last years, we have gone through different phases of being smiled at in the beginning and then taken more serious because we came out with a solution that no one else has in the market so far. So we are a worldwide leader on a certain segment. And I think by now we are talking on eye level with them. And that is also reflected in the way how we communicate together. For example, lately we have issued a manufacturer statement together with Siemens and Schneider Electric with regard to replacement of SF6. And the list of companies that is on there is basically a couple of multinational companies and Nuventura.
Yeah, that sounds great. You should be really proud of it. We are kind of proud of Nuventura as investors. We were involved already at seed stage, and Aeon and Innogy unlocked several pilot projects for Nuventura, and I have to say that what was promised has been delivered. So this is one of the companies that we are really happy about. Do you plan to fundraise soon?
Yes, so we are currently aligning in the board how exactly, but what we know and how much, but what we know is that in January 2022, we will make the next step towards fundraising, go out and start discussions with investors again.
Great, good luck with that. Hope to have a small ticket also for the existing investors. Fabian, I think our time is over, and I hope that the audience of Future Fuel managed to learn a little bit about SF6 and how Nuventura is going to remove this harmful gas from the atmosphere. It was a great pleasure having you with us today, and I hope to see you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan.